You talk about being a foster kid and having like a rough childhood before you sort of found yourself. I mean, can you tell the folks who may not know all that, like where did you come from and what happened?
Well, so my mama, she was sick. My mama was sick before she even got pregnant with me, and it was very advisable that my mama was gonna most likely pass away if she had had a full time birth. But my mom was a really selfless person and made a decision at the age of 25 to have me and to give me life. And she basically sacrificed her life to give me a life, which is like
Mm.
most wonderful and beautiful thing that I know. And when people talk about like sacrifices their parents have made for them, I really understand that meaning. And unfortunately, so my mama died when I was 2, and then I lived with my grandma, and then she unfortunately died by the age of 8. So my first 2 guardians that I lived with passed away, and my father wasn't in the position to take care of me. So before the age of 8, I had not just one, but I was orphaned twice, sadly. And then this woman that I knew, she took custody of me and became my full-time guardian, my foster parent, and then my adoptive parent. And I lived with her for 8 years. And unbeknownst to me, I'd known this person my whole life. They were a big part of my life, and I was very close with them. Um, and then it was like night and day. The moment my grandmother died, I seen a switch in this person, in their behavior, in the way they treated me. And I won't get too graphic or too detailed, but unfortunately, it became a real family domestic violence situation where I was being inundated with a lot of physical, emotional, and psychological abuse. And I'd almost instantaneously identified it when it was going on. And the woman was manipulating me and telling me to lie and to hide it, as abusers do. And I was hiding it and lying about it for a very long time. But I have full documentation that it was going on because I have all of my diaries from when I was about 7 years old. So I knew that I was in a very uncomfortable situation, and I just really knew it was not normal for me. Like I just knew it. I was very aware of it. I'd always also known that my foster parent was a victim of abuse themselves, and the conversation of understanding abuse was that abuse people. And I just really knew that, like, by the time I became 15, it was a lot for me. It hadn't changed. It was just getting worse. And it was just, I felt so alone and so taken advantage of and so empty for such a long time. I became really fed up with it. And I really made the mature decision and I came to an understanding that if I ever wanted to be happy or ever wanted to live a normal life or pursue the things that I wanted to pursue in life without being hassled or emotionally tortured, which is what I always felt, I had to get out of there. And I tried getting out when I was 15. That didn't work. Actually, she made it her business to get me back in a home. And then 16, I was like, this is it. Like, I have the courage. Like, I'm sitting on the courage to really fucking leave. And then I did. We got into our last fight, and I let her put her hands on me for the last time. And for the first time, very courageously, I fought back. And she was very surprised and shocked. And she was fighting me because I was fighting back. And I was defending myself. And in that question where she asked me, like, who do you think you are? Like, what do you, like, and I made a very, very brave decision to say vocally that I'm supposed to respect you. I'm not supposed to fear you. And I feared you my whole life. And I had, like the way that people in power, they use these tactics to enslave or manipulate or abuse people. I had unraveled that whole thread. And I had bested her at her game, like a young girl. And I had realized all the psychological tricks and things that she had done to manipulate me and to and to oppress me. And I said, this ain't gonna work anymore. I'm hip to your shit, and I'm not for it anymore. And I just made a decision, and I ran away, and I didn't come back. And I said to my dad that we just, I made the decision. I made the conscious decision as a 16-year-old person. I know a lot of people who are adults who still can't make these decisions for their environments. But for me, I felt like I was going to kill myself. I really did. I felt like this was the worst person that I knew. She was a terrible person. She did nothing but put me down. And I just was like, a light really flicked on. And I felt like God was talking to me. I really did. And I just decided to free myself. And it was the best decision I ever made. August 2nd, 2008, 12 years ago, I left foster care and I started living for myself. And it was the most liberating thing I ever did. And I'm really happy I did it. And I'm really happy I got to share with you that story, because I never really shared that story in detail like that. But a lot of people wonder about my life, and because I'm all over the place. And that is what happened.
Wow. Thank you.
You're welcome.
How does the trauma that you went through continue to affect you?
Well, I think there's a lot of stuff that have to do with the matriarchal part of what I was raised by. And I always find myself because everything, I've healed from this so much in a way where I was continuously aware and learning from the situation. So I have had a lot of years to heal, and I can tell you this from like a post-healer's perspective. I'm not in a traumatized place anymore. I think that trauma between the ages of 16 and 21 was really hard for me, because I was basically uncovering a lot of subconscious experiences that I put back in my mind. I was uncovering the fact that this had happened, and that I had allowed it to happen, and that this was real. Like the stuff that I was hiding from my friends or lying about or making it seem like it wasn't that big of a deal, that all came back to me. And I had to process that. I had to process that I was a victim. I never knew that. One time a boyfriend asked me, you ever been abused? And I thought victims of abuse were just sexually. And I said, no. And then a few years later, I was like, oh, I should have said, yeah. Because you think about stuff and you do therapy, you do healing, and you realize that you are in that window. And then, all these things about growing up and being unloved and neglected, and that's emotional. You got to come to grips with that. I came to grips with that and all that stuff. For me, I think now as an adult, my trauma is realizing that I take after a lot of a person that I don't particularly care for and think is a great person. It's like hard. Like all the really educational and culturally stimulated parts of myself come from this person, because abusers are normal people as well. So my abuser was a very progressive, liberal, Afro-Indigenous college graduate with a 6-figure job, who taught me a lot of really formidable things about myself. That, the way I speak, my classiness, that country rearing of being a lady and speaking with others with manners and etiquette, the way I do. That I've always been made fun of as a kid. People are like, why are you so proper? Why you talk like a house slave? And like, oh, fuck. Like, I do that because my foster mother taught me to do that. She's older than anybody's mom. And she come from different type of breeding and rearing. And she spoke in a different way. And that's why I speak like that. And you go, oh, fuck. And I don't think there's anything wrong with the way I speak, even though people kind of like poke at it and go like, you're from New York, why do you speak like that? And it's like, oh, I was raised by a woman who was born in 1956. And then, or like, I think like like, why am I so prideful of my Afro-Indigenous culture? It was because of this woman. And she taught me all these things to be proud of myself and to teach me all these things. But then on the other side, this woman was telling me that I was a bitch and that I was stupid and that I was ugly and that I was shameful and that I was fast and that accusing me of all these things. The woman had serious bipolar. So there were some things that were great and we could share and bond with, which, I needed as a person who didn't have a mother figure. And then there were things that were really, really not okay, very inappropriate, very abusive. So me as an adult, 27-year-old Destiny, I'm like trying to distinguish what to be proud of myself. And realizing that the most formidable things about myself come from a person I don't want to give credit to.